is our 11th video in this series of planets and signs, and by now you know how to interpret a combination between planet and sign. You look for resonance, which is either harmonious or dissonant. So, for Aquarius, let's walk through the major resonances. The big thing here, as is the case with many other signs in which the sun isn't so comfortable, is that the sun is the king and Aquarius is not. Aquarius is the worker. Aquarius is everybody, the common person. So, you get a clash between worker versus leader or humility versus authority. And what we should expect from that as a baseline or of interpretation is the person doesn't really rise to prominence, or the person doesn't really get recognition. They're humble, they're not able to muster the ego that it takes to put themselves in front of other people and put themselves above other people. This isn't to say that there aren't celebrities who are born with the sun in Aquarius. Obviously there are. What I'm explaining to you is the baseline. What's at work with the sun in Aquarius, which can be modified by the kind of effects that are influencing the sun and the particular degree in Aquarius that the sun is at. But even in those cases where the baseline interpretation of sun in Aquarius gets modified, it still has the baseline flavor, which is really not putting yourself in front of other people. And so people who become famous with an Aquarian sun tend to become famous in concert or connection with others that come up at the same time. And this also has to do with the next major resonance between the sun and Aquarius, which is the fact that Aquarius is very groupy. It assumes a group identity rather than separating from a group. Whereas the sun is ego, right? So this Aquarius is non-ego, the sun is ego, Aquarius is self-sacrifice, the sun is self. So what you see here is that sun in Aquarius indicates humility. Like I'm saying, not an intention or a tendency to put oneself in front of others. Now, it's a clash, so basically it means you need to be a part of a team. But if you modify it in a bit of a good way, whether it's getting good aspects or if it's in a good degree in Aquarius where it has nice amshas, then it means you rise to prominence because of the team that you're on. You rise to prominence because of the group that you're a part of. Now, one more thing. The third and probably final major important resonance between the sun and Aquarius is that the sun is very decisive. It's clear, it's clarifying, it's sure. Whereas Aquarius is very eclectic and it has a skepticism to it. The eclecticity of Aquarius is due to Saturn being its ruler. Saturn being skeptical causes Aquarius not to fully and wholly embrace any one thing because it finds flaws in any one thing. But it takes bits and pieces from a whole bunch of things. The baseline interpretation for that is, well, here's a person who's eclectic, who's skeptical, who considers things carefully and doesn't really subscribe fully and entirely to any side of the argument. They'll also tend to be an individuating person, which is interesting because they don't individuate themselves, but they're individuating in how they consider things, by which I mean they take each thing on its own terms. They're not going to accept something just because it's part of a package. They examine the contents of the package and accept the contents individually. So these are the basic principles at work when the sun is in Aquarius. The important themes are that eclecticism is vying with the decisiveness of the sun. That's going to have a certain effect. the humility of Aquarius is vying with the confidence of the sun, and that's going to have an effect. And the groupiness or the non-ego of Aquarius is vying with the leadership and ego of the sun, and that's going to have an effect. Exactly what effect it is, you have a baseline of what you theoretically expect from the sun in Aquarius in a vacuum, which is what we've explained in this video, but you have to always bear in mind the context of the chart, what the rest of the chart is saying, and also the context especially for the sun. What influences by conjunction and aspect are on the sun, and what amshas are the sun in contact with due to the degree that it occupies in Aquarius. So I hope you find this very interesting, and you want to see more, you can subscribe to my channel, because we will do all the planets in all the signs.